Okay, this will be part two of the zeitgeist movie talk that we were having. So what I was saying is that he's already got you, the movie maker has already got you inducted in to a belief system, to a channel, and he mentions in there that there are some works out of history that back up the existence of Jesus Christ as a non-fictional character, but a real character. So he just kind of cruises over that. He doesn't put up his proofs. He doesn't bother to go through showing any quotes from those older proofs that Jesus was actually on the earth, and he cruises over that because he does not want you thinking about those books. He does not want you thinking about the fact that Jesus was a real guy that really walked on the earth, and he's not just one of the made-up characters through history that copied the solar system, the sun, the 12 planets that revolved around the sun, and so on and so forth. Which, by the way, God said He gave you all those for signs. So, naturally it would be that way. But anyway, be that here it may. He cruises over that, and there's a reason, because he don't want, while that channel's open, he does not want to induct anything that's positive toward Jesus. Okay, another thing to watch for in a witch is that they always seem to attack Jesus Christ and never give Buddha or Muhammad or all those guys equal time in the beheading of Jesus Christ, right? Their attack always seems to be specifically on Jesus. They can live with Muhammad's beliefs and followers. It doesn't really seem to stick them in the ribs, as it were. Same thing with Buddhists or Kabbalists. If his point is that Jesus is a made-up guy, then the reason we're following Jesus and we're the cause of all the bad in the world and wars and stuff. Well, hell, what about the Kabbalists and the Muhammad followers and all those guys? I mean, they're making some wars too, aren't they? But they never seem to get around to do the same thing to those guys. Now, why? Jesus is the target here. Those guys aren't the target. So, after about the first 10 minutes or whatever this in that movie of him attacking Jesus and enlightening you to the fact that Jesus is basically modeled and molded after the lunar stellar figures that we see in space through looking glasses, the stars, the solar stuff, then he goes on to something that they can prove without a doubt, that you can't deny, which is the whole 9/11 thing. And who's in charge of the world, as in the bankers? Well, they show you that stuff always right after they strip Jesus of his garb. And then we get into all these things that you can really jump on board and say, yeah, that's right. I am oppressed by the bankers. Yeah, I do believe something funny happened at 9/11. Yeah, I can see where the wars are all trumped up to make old men rich and young men are dying from it. And see, because now that's just another channel. It's the bandwagon channel. So, but what it does is, now everything he just told you about Christ in the beginning is just sort of lumped in between the humor of George Carlin and the other comedian. His name escapes me, but the guy, both of them are passed on, by the way. And then we bring up the Jesus thing, and then we sandwich between the 9/11 and who's really owns the banks and who's in charge of it. So the Jesus thing is kind of sandwiched in there in between. So you got two channels open to control your belief system, and Jesus is entrapped in them. It's a package deal. And if you notice, almost all of these videos work in the same technique. The first thing they'll do is, they'll open you up to some humor, some music, something to get your mind open. A lot of these videos, one of the most popular channels is they like to show video clips of space. These beautiful planets and solar systems, and these beautiful pictures of the sun peeking around the edge of Earth. And that's imagery, and that's tuning your mind. Then the next thing we come on, oh, there's this little thing where we got to strip Christ of his garb, and you know, plant this seed in your head. Jesus is not who he said he was. And then we're going to sandwich that in with who the bankers really are, and who is in charge, and why we're so unhappy, blah blah blah. So that the thing in the middle, which is the attack on Jesus, because it is sandwiched in between the good imagery that you find beautiful and longing, and then the bandwagon material, which is, oh yeah, 9/11, we're all being attacked, blah blah blah. So the whole, we got to accept it as a package deal, and your mind just did that, and you didn't even know your mind did it. Now, why is this important? Well, these shows seem to be getting a lot of help. One of the videos I watched was made by a guy from the family of Procter and Gamble. As a matter of fact, his last name is Gamble. You know, Procter and Gamble was probably known as, in the early days, one of the very first occultic companies to be exposed for their occultic beliefs way back as far as the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. And then, so I mean, anything from that family, from people raised in that atmosphere, even be the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, whatever, you have to understand they're very much tainted. I'll get on to that video here in a minute, but I'm gonna stay right now. Stay with the zeitgeist thing. So the zeitgeist movie is a splitting image of the shaking that's going to happen to not only this nation but the world of Christians. Those belief systems that Jesus was nothing more than a creation of the sun worshippers, and their proofs. Where do these proofs come from? History. Where is history? In our colleges. Where are people taught? Imagine, if you will, back in the 60s when there were no zeitgeist movies, because they would be run out on a rail if they made a movie such as that, and there were no YouTube to help people come along to this enlightenment, this higher state of learning. Where did this come from? It came from colleges. The Christian sent their kid to a college back in the 60s with money that was made by a Christian, and colleges that were built by Christians, that they drove to get there on roads that were built by Christians, in a nation that was built and brought to greatness because of nothing other than their Christian belief. Now, in these colleges that you sent your kids to, there were books and there were history courses, and they were taught these things about who the Egyptian sun gods were, and the similarities between, they were put ever so tactfully in the history books, the similarities between Horus and Jesus, and just goes on and on and on, all these other Greek gods that also had a virgin birth from a virgin mother, and also had 12 people hanging around them, that also was hung up on a cross. So now think about what happened to your kid in the 60s that were reading this with no help from the zeitgeist movies, but they figured it out on their own, didn't they? Well, there goes the faith of Jesus Christ out the window. And then they got to go back home for Thanksgiving and visit their dumbass parents, who paid for them to go to this college, by the way. And they got to deal with, the whole Jesus thing is not real, and there's the, oh, you blasphemer, you get out of my house, and then there's this war started, all from this seed of what happened in history. Then in the 60s, we got things like Woodstock and the hippie movement, in which people really don't understand to this day. It was basically a bunch of Kabbalism that, with the help of people like the Beatles and other music entertainers, were packaged and sandwiched in between music and drugs. The whole Kabbalism thing was packed in there, and it was fed to us with a pill with the same technique. And we take it, we swallowed it down, and then from the 60s, later 60s on, this country doesn't seem to be worth a shit. Nobody seems to know why. Well, what's happened is that this faith, the ability to have faith in Jesus Christ, has slowly been chipped away. Now, back up to the 60s, to the 70s, it wasn't that big of a hammer chipping away at the faith in Jesus Christ. But now that these movies, such as Zeitgeist and the YouTube channels that are putting out such beautifully well edited and well orchestrated pieces on tearing down Christ, it's really reaching a lot of people, isn't it? So that same thing that happened on small scale in colleges today are happening in mass scale today on YouTube, and through the History Channel, through cable channels, who like run movies like Zeitgeist and so forth. Just imagine if your kid was 15 years old watching the movie Zeitgeist. Whoop, well, shit, there goes the ability to have any faith on Jesus. They've just been educated by a method of higher learning, something they can trust and see with their eyes, that Jesus was, you know, a bunch of made-up story. So you're shaken from your faith, from your belief in Jesus Christ, and your family is in turn shaken. So this movement is getting stronger and stronger. Now, I said I'm going to do this in parts, and I'm not sure how long this one is, so I'm going to end this one. When I come back, we're going to talk about who the witches are and what do they have to gain by stripping away Jesus Christ, or the belief in Jesus Christ. What has Jesus Christ's faith given us as a nation, and what will we lose from it being taken away? And we're gonna come back to that in part 3. So hang in, guys, and we'll talk to you in a bit.